Here we go. Grandpa's getting it underway. I better light me up a cigarette. In fact, I don't have one. Shit, well, I'll poke them, man. But here's to you guys. I love you. Old Grandpa Coyote here on the Coyote Medicine Show, only on the Hazy Radio Network. Don't you know? It's an experience, baby. In love, in life, in rock and roll, it's all the same, don't you know? It just gets in that flow. See, that's what we demonstrate here again and again, moment to moment, day after day, year after year here, till we all, rise up and got it clear, man. It's a rolling, slow, new NEW, clear explosion, man, of compassionate awareness, man. The truth of our existence in this reality. So let me talk this little number to you here and share a little of the Colorado cheer. By the way, this came from a really unique and fun person we met yesterday. And it's, wow. Blessed by the kosher people, man. So I got kosher nugs here to smoke this morning. No wonder we're getting so expansive. Yes, indeedy. Just like old Terrence McKenna in the past. There's something to these things that will set you free. You can have that cosmic moment because you've already had it. It's just a matter of remembering it. And then when you remember that moment, you see how it extends and expands into every moment you've lived with every person you've encountered since then. You've been regenerating that moment again and again. And not by bumping fuzzies either, by bumping fuzzy hearts. Recognizing one another, sharing a moment of connection. It might just be the touch of a hand and the connecting of the eyes. It's a union. You see, you're magic now. You've moved beyond the 3D in that sweet moment where you remembered the blue star sky and the beginning of the regenerative creation. The moment where we began to dream this into being. Yeah, baby. So I remember back there, in the 1980s, man, when I was a little uptight. Here, people were around me. Now, see, I met this group of people down in L.A., of all places, a few years before, that were pretty interesting. A bunch of seeking hippies and pretty open and expansive. And, they had these Thursday night rap sessions in this obscure little building down there in Culver City next to the MGM and the Helms Bakery and that, and I thought, wow, this is a pretty cool bunch, So I hung out with them on Thursday nights. I arranged my schedule so I'd be there in L.A. every frickin' Thursday, man. And, I'd get my pickups done during the day and I'd go hang out with these guys at night and leave early in the morning the next day, like, 3 a.m. I'd be up and out of there because I didn't like fighting the traffic, There's still traffic at 3 a.m. Nowadays, shit, I don't think it ever stopped. Back then, it was real light traffic, usually at 3 a.m. unless something happened that messed up the highways. Then you'd just be in deep shit no matter what. Didn't matter what time you left. But anyways, I was hanging out with them, and this led me to, a lot of unusual changes in my states of awareness and my state of being. And, I dropped cigarettes and MARYJANE. I even gave up coffee for a while, but I was resonating in this meditative state, and I was beginning to see things really clearly, and it was kind of a shocking thing, a little like sometimes when you first take LSD and you see a little too much too fast. You feel like the flower bud's being forced to blossom and it don't want to just yet. It needs more sunlight, It's kind of a feeling like that, but at the same time I was flowing with it. But it took me in some real unusual directions. I had some ancestral tendencies I had to deal with in myself, Because, man, when I was a kid, I'd really cussed my ancestors for ever being so stupid as to wind up in Utah in that gummed up mess. But I also, in the same time, appreciated and loved that as my home country like nobody's business. And I still do. I love that place, and I love the energy of the people there. I just couldn't take the lack of cosmic awareness. I had to be more expansive and free than they could possibly be. And I couldn't fulfill the role they'd assigned me. As a child, they wanted me to rise up to be one of their great leaders. And there's just no way in hell I could do it, I mean, I was in the heart. I mean, I just had a different perspective than anybody around me. I felt like a stranger in a strange land. Well, in the 80s, this came back to slap me in the face again because, this group kind of transplanted itself to a new home, and they bought a ranch together up in this really magical place in Southern Oregon. Well, I was already living there in the area, so it was natural for me to hang out there with them some, I wasn't into spending big money. This was starting to become a money machine since the ranch happened, and people were paying thousands of dollars to come and spend a couple of days in a healing seminar and stuff, And boy, people around me thought I was crazy and dangerous. They were afraid of me, man. I had a more clear view than anybody. I just, like the old too much too soon, I just didn't know quite what to do with it, And I was real clear as to the what I saw as entities inside of me at the time that were really functional and a vast part of my life, and that scared everybody, because I'd let them out in those times every now and then. I would let them out and let them speak, because I needed to get to know what the hell this was. And I've been dealing with this shit since I was a little kid, On the one side, I had a heart of love that, like my decrepit old mother before she died, the last time I saw her alive, and she's lost in what they call Alzheimer's. Well, forgetfulness, she's letting go of her life and starting to live in the love again, So for some, it's a slow process, her in particular, But she still had a little cosmic awareness, and God, I got to love her for it, And she said, as soon as she saw me, "Oh, my son, this is the one that would give you anything. He'll give you this shirt off his back, the most generous soul that ever lived." I looked at her and, "Mother, God, I love you." You can exaggerate a bit, but God, I love you, honey. She was so free then, It wasn't the mother I'd grown up with that was so uptight, and I was so afraid of herself and so afraid of the world around her that, she created protective coating around us and indoctrinated us with this magical form of brainwash. Oh my God. It's a Mormon existence. You just have to experience it to know it. You can get a little slice of it if you want to know a little more about that out of my book called The Atomic Bum. It's got a lot of that in there. It gives you some little different perspective, a little different view of the origins of Utah, the place where I was born and raised, So here I am living in Oregon, this magical, beautiful place, with these, around these strands. I wasn't in no cult or nothing, but it kind of had those cultish tendencies to it, and I was starting to recognize, and I wasn't real comfortable with that shit. So I would mouth off against those tendencies. And, I especially disagreed with the way money was being passed around. All of a sudden, this was a big money machine. It wasn't just a bunch of seeking little hippies. There were people with millions of dollars there that were, willing to write out checks just because somebody helped them feel better about themselves. You know what I mean? Big checks. I wasn't a part of any of that. I just saw it going on, and I was like going, "Oh my God." So I became a little resistant to that kind of energy. And then they started tending towards the Republican side, which was the tendency back in the 80s. Oh my God, I was having a fit. Even though I could be uptight, I couldn't be that mean to anybody. I just, I had a certain meanness because of what I saw as what possessed me or possessed a part of me. But I was forced to real extreme places there inside of myself at that time. Like I said, a little too much too fast. But oh my God, it led to a point, 10 years later where, wow, I came back to life like you wouldn't believe, So I could take the harassment and the pain, but I'll tell you one thing that's risen out of me in that experience that, became kind of a fast rule for a while. Now I know better, but for a while I just said, no criticism, no critics for me. No, I'm not going to criticize nobody, nothing, no more of that, And now I know how to be more mellow about it, and I know how not to be critical. I've lived in a very critical place with very critical people who were insanely critical of themselves and therefore of everyone else around them. You know what I mean? And while they profess to want to see and be and dwell in understanding, in a natural form of love, they didn't understand what the hell that might be. They saw a natural form of love as something regimented, It went from these hippie leanings where we were open and loving and willing to try some communal experience in community of one sort or another, and just let it kind of form itself. It went from that to this hellhole where people were super critical of one another, would blast one another with their supposed inequities, in a loving sort of way, of course, and then charge $1 million for it. I mean, it boiled down to that kind of shit. And finally I got to the point where, shit, I recognized, tendencies towards hypnosis and mind control that I'd been asleep to before. A friend helped me see it, but God almighty, by kidnapping me one day, come to my house and said, hey, let's go for a ride. And I said, well, yeah, shit, I'm off. Let's go. Next thing I know, I'm up in Roseburg, which is 150 miles away, and this dude's, in his own way, got me involved in a conversation that gets pretty deep and pretty passionate and pretty stretching, but by God, I finally saw it. I finally let go of the initial shock of realizing that you had been manipulated and been controlled to some extent by persons around you, human beings. And it's like, holy shit, I stepped into a pattern, a mold, and I didn't even know I was doing it. So that's what happened to my ancestors. They were the free thinkers of their time. They were looking for the magic of that love. They didn't know any more than I did. They were just as idealistic and just as dreaming as I was. The dream I held in me, the one I was born with, of this utopian existence, was in them too, and it's what motivated them. I understood them. God. And I could let go of all that intense hatred I'd felt toward him, and that magical rage that, had a purifying fire all of its own that saw things so hatefully clear. I could release that energy. I could meld and merge with a more loving and kind place inside of myself. And I began to participate in Mary Jane again, and she started to put together the pieces of my soul, and we started to develop a real cosmic harmony. I mean, this is about 92, and I had my own little business then. I had a little country cafe and hotel and western theme park with chainsaw-carved gunfighters and barbers and hookers and all kinds of shit in it. I had a bear behind the bar, and I had a 28-space campground behind that often had to have 150, 200 people partying back there. We just let them be. As long as they self-regulated, we self-regulated and let them free. You know what I mean? It was an interesting, out in the middle of nowhere in this wild woods of southern Oregon, where there was some real hellacious stuff going on. And, it had been a war zone in the 70s. Now we're in the early 90s, And wow, the remnants of that was still there, because of the massive marijuana and the billions of dollars that were changing hands. It was huge economy in the 70s, growing hundreds of acres of pot out on Forest Service land in the open, man. And, of course, because of that, that's what made it a war zone. I mean, a person takes a look at a 60-acre field of ripe marijuana with koalas 10 feet long, 6 pounds a plant or something, and they lust for the billions of dollars. They see nothing but dollar signs, and so they engineer an army and come after you, to take your shit away from you, man. So the intensity of all that warfare energy, because, most of the people that did this shit employed ex-Vietnam vets to protect their places. I mean, it was crazy. It was, a friend of mine wanted me to write a book about his experiences. I regret not ever having had the time to do that or taken the time to do that. I was pretty busily engaged there in 92 with this enterprise, but oh my goodness, I tell you, it was a kick in the ass. What a great way to come back to life in this magical little place. You're dealing with some stressful energies, but I was surrounded by really good people. My staff, I had about 15 people working for me there on the payroll, baby. We made this place pay for itself right away, and it was decrepit when I took it over. And I built it back up into a stunning little jewel within 6 months' time. 3 months it was profitable. 3 months. 6 months it was booming, and the weekends were just a blast. We were busy, man, and it was cosmic, And so I'm coming back to life. And of course there's always going to be some stress. I couldn't help but create some trouble for myself. I employed the wrong person, and ultimately it led to me losing the whole enterprise. She outright stole it from me. I mean, just as bold as you please. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think people were that savage, but God damn, sometimes they are, And I could only bless her for it and move on to a more essential paradise where I could go recreate my soul. I was transplanted instantaneously almost from that situation over onto this cosmic little ranch out in the middle of God's green nowhere, nestled down in the Siskiyou Mountains all by its lonely little self in this magical little valley that's so remote you think you're driving off the edge of the earth before you get there, man. It's way out there, and there's no phone, no telegraph, no communications whatsoever with the outside world other than getting on your pony and riding over the mountain and going down and communicating with folks down on the other side. The nearest telephone was like 18 miles away down in this little burg of a town by this beautiful river. Oh my God. Everywhere you looked here, you saw the face of God. And I began to experience my life in a more full way as I seasoned myself through yet another death. You know, this illness came with me when I moved to this ranch. All of that stress that I'd carried through those uglier situations I'd been through, you know, wasn't too long before that where somebody had ripped me off for $250,000, man. You know, these enterprises, you know, and money, and when zeros start to pile up, people get greedy, and the next thing you know, they want what you have, and they'll take it, too. It's like people you trust and know, brothers, sisters, you know. Shit is crazy, you know. So I determined that I'd had enough of that world. That's where I wound up on the ranch there, because it seemed like a far simpler place, a nice place where I could just take a little magic carpet ride and, you know, cruise into a smoother existence. I knew, and I was learning greatly, how to live on almost no money in this world and live like a king doing it. And this ranch deal was part of that. You know, I had a really nice home. I lived like a billionaire, a really nice home. I mean, it was primitive. You had to build wood fires. You had to have firewood, et cetera, you know. And in the winter, sometimes we'd wind up taking pan baths because we didn't feel like driving 50 miles to take a shower. Everything was frozen in the winter. You couldn't, you know, take a shower in the house. There's no water, you know. Our water came down a long, narrow, skinny ditch that came 2 miles out of the creek way above us, 2 miles along a mountainside, and it was an incredible maintenance headache, let alone the flume system that went with it. Oh, my goodness. But I tell you, babies, you know, after that, you know, compressive experience in the 80s where I came to understand and realize my ancestors, it was just like another one of those magic moments where all of a sudden I understood the pain of all the generations and where the dream had been and where it had all led us. You know, how we'd held that dream through all of these generations since the beginning of time, you know. It began that kind of unraveling experience within me. And of course, like I said, while I worked at this ranch, you know, I went through these trying moments with disease and illness that brought me back to life, that put me in touch with, you know, the ascendant blasters and, the, you know, reconnected me with the blue star energy of life and the spotted eagle, which, you know, I dance with still to this day, you know. That spotted eagle energy. It's a real thing, babies. This is when, you know, spirit and physicality in this very remote and ruggedy place began to meld and merge into one world. And it's been an awesome and an amazing process ever since, because I went to the death moment, come back to life. I've told that story many times before. But what I see in that death moment that I didn't necessarily recognize before is that blue star. You know, that's the gateway. That's the other side. And, you know, the blue star now, right along with the mother love, reassembles in full conscious presence through us into the assemblage of this earth reality, the mother love. We put it back in the earth consciously, present, you know. Of course she is anyway. This is just what we allow for ourselves to be and see and to live in a far more cosmic coherence with our Mother Earth than we ever could have before. Because we're back to that moment where the mother love and the father love are embraced in the mother and the two sons. And from that glowing presence comes everything. It's that moment, that blue star sky, and beneath the blue star sky, we regenerate, recreate our living. So let yourself flow back through this journey of time. Let your heart take you there. Let yourself experience this flow. It's regenerative, don't you know? And there you are, back at that beginning space and time, that beginning moment, where all is so damn divine. It's like being on the beach and you got all the time you need to unwind, and all the pina coladas and sweet weed and anything else you might need to nurture you through this time of recovery, man. Because that's what we're doing now. We're letting go of the drama, the poetic little show we've played so many interesting parts in, like something I just described to you now, you know. This is how we learn and grow, though. This is what spiritual pioneers do and be. They have to be willing to test themselves and stretch themselves, and they don't know the meaning of the word no unless they're saying it to somebody else. They never hear it in themselves, you know. In other words, you know, from the time I was tiny, and I know you share a similar energy, that's why I share the tales of it, you know, it rekindles precious memories and helps us appreciate where we really are and who we've truly been and who we truly are, you know. It's always there together in us. We just don't know. We've been Mr. Magoo for a long time, blind as a bat, but learning our way out of it by what? Experience. By being willing to go anywhere your heart, your interest, your awareness, your cosmic nature will take you. And that ultimate leads to paradise. You can't avoid it. If you're that willing, if you're that much of a spiritual pioneer, and you'll let yourself get clobbered because of it again and again and again till you just want to die, you're so damn tired of the fight. And that brings you back to life. So fighting it was a good thing. It's all you could do to survive there for a while. You didn't know any better. Well, now you do. Death has taught you about life. The blue star sky lives inside of you. You are the brotherhood of the heart. And the sisterhood, too. That is the brotherhood. That's the union. The one love in everything that is. And we've had our moments with it. And that's why we can regenerate now with those moments and retreat to that moment of nuclear explosion. The mother, father, earth, air, sky, energy, reality, union, cosmic awareness and conscious presence and physicality, a feeling thing, a new experience. The divine can appreciate itself now more deeply than ever before. So says my little Obi-Wan Kenobi over there too. Forgive him, he's just trying to announce that there are strangers nearby. And also letting you know that he's also the loving guy too. Baby, see how united we are, even with the angels. You'll begin now your visits with angels and ancestors and cosmic beings such as you never have before. The gateway to your experience now is completely open. And it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be whatever you're willing to see. And you can journey with it wherever you want to be. Because you're sharing that magic moment of union everywhere. With everyone. Not just those you see. That's how united we are. And you see, we see it. We begin to realize it now. We remember it now. We're awakening to the ever-present truth that's always been living here through all of these cosmic generations, which are now cosmic regenerations, bringing us back from that beginning moment to that beginning moment, right in the here and now, ever present in that moment, ever together with the one heart that cosmically and contentedly expands orgasmically into creation. Holy shite, babies, that's a wake-up call for y'all, dancing around that, you know, mulberry bush of life, the tree of life, of course, you know, here we go round the mulberry bush. It's just becoming a real presence. And you're becoming a real person, and all you have to be is allowing that to continue. I share with you some of my more ruggedy experience so you can see how ruggedy it may be, you know, in the transition. You're going to have to let go of a lot of fixed ideas and opinions here, you know, and a lot of programmed behavior. You know, you're going to have to see through all of that. Truth is part of the process of truth is seeing the uglier side and letting go of it, you know, being aware of the beauty and the truth in everything. You know, so sometimes you wallow in the ugliness for a bit, and you can't be blaming yourself for that, because out of that comes clarity. and focus, incredible focus. When you can understand the darkest moments, the brightest moments make perfect sense and just flow into the collective awareness, ever more expansively. Again, that orgasmic expansion, the new, clear explosion. We're clearly seeing now. We're clearly feeling now. We're allowing feeling to be in every particle of ourself, including the light that surrounds us, the love that we are. We're getting the full experience. It's multidimensional. Hell yeah. It dissolves the divisions as we rise through the dimensions. They dissolve away. We live in a multidimensional way already. We are completely united with life. Life lives with us. We are aware of every life. Every life is aware of us and of what we're up to. At all times, anytime we're given, whether we're stumbling around in darkness or blossoming and coming right back to life like we are now. The entire universe experiences this with us. And why would that be? Because that universe replicates itself inside of us. We are the universal existence, the spaceship love, the mothership. And what we see reflected around us is what reflects from inside of us. That's the nature of creation. Now you see how it is that we be in this creation. And it's rock and roll for sure, baby. Hey, doobies, pass me one over here, will you, baby? We really need to rock now, baby.